All right.
I wish that was.
Hello?
Let's do this.
We have an extra phone, a Samsung S7 phone left around. If anybody's missing a phone, we will leave it right here. If you hear anybody missing a phone, it's here as well. I think we're going to go ahead and start it. We're kind of moderatorless right now. So, but do we have everybody here? Maybe? What's that?
Are there two at the end?
I don't know. We're running without a leader here, so I think we're just going to get started anyway. So we might as well just get going, right?
Yeah.
Should we do a quick introduction? Yeah, a quick introduction. So I guess I'll go first. My name is John Linden. I'm the president of Seismic Games. I was formerly a studio head at Activision for about 5 years. Did a big augmented reality game called Skylanders Battlecast with physical cards there. That was my last game we did at Activision. Left, started a new game studio called Seismic, and we're mostly doing mobile games. We're doing a major mobile VR game right now in a sci-fi universe. It's going to be coming out in about a year. And we've done a couple other VR projects as well. So, yeah.
My name is Joseph Fataya. I came out of the traditional filmmaking world. I was a feature film director and writer, producer, and then pivoted into VR. And we've been producing music videos, traditional production company stuff, branded content. We're doing everything for CBS now. Got a really cool thing coming out with Stephen Colbert in the next couple of weeks. But what we're developing in-house, what we're very excited about, is a platform for children who are in hospitals to help them stay connected to the world. It's going to have a social component, but also travel, meditation, nature, and then some procedural rehearsal as well. So we're excited about exploring ways to take it beyond entertainment and take it into a real need-based practice.
Thank you, sir. Checking. Hi, my name is Nick Yaniti. I'm with a company called Fuel. We're an LA and Ottawa, Canada-based digital agency. So we come at it from the direct-to-brand VR, AR experience. So we work with companies like Microsoft, McDonald's, Salesforce, to help them enter that world and create campaigns in mixed reality, and sort of test the space, enter the space, and reach consumers that way. We also work with enterprise level, so in terms of training and internal tools that they'll be using across their organizations. So we'll talk about that more as we get into it. An example of one of the recent campaigns we did for McDonald's was. Essentially, we were building the digital version of the Happy Meal. So you go to the store, you get your restaurant toy, and it was how do we take that globally in terms of a second screen experience? How do they keep playing with that toy as they expect to do once they leave the restaurant? So an example was for How to Train Your Dragons 2. We built the augmented reality. Essentially, you look around the restaurant and you play. It was a pre-Pokemon Go type of Pokemon Go experience, Yeah, we'll chat more in a bit.
Cool. My name is Alex. I run a company called Entertainment Design Corporation, based out of Mid-City. We're a company that does a myriad of different things. We do a bunch of film, television, theater work, as well as theme park design and production, kinetic art, and installation art works. So kind of run the gamut. We're basically storytellers, and we tell stories in different kind of avenues and venues. We use VR mainly as a tool in-house. So we're never client-facing on our VR work. It's always to help us flesh out the world that we create. So we come at it at a little bit of a different angle. But yeah.
Yeah, my name's Craig Dalton. I'm with Dodo Case. We're a hardware company. So we do smartphone virtual reality headsets. We've been doing it since 2014, and we both work direct to consumer with our products, but also do a ton of custom branded cardboard virtual reality headsets and headsets like this Smart VR headset. So we're sort of a complement to anybody who's on the content side. We've done over 1,000 campaigns and shipped over 1 million viewers out into the world. So we've seen a lot of different ways in which people are distributing headsets so that their content can be seen. As we all know, it's the early days of VR, and you can't naturally assume that the customer has access to a virtual reality headset today. So we're playing a critical role in sort of enabling the market to take baby steps forward.
All right, so I guess we'll play moderator here a little bit as well. So So the talk obviously is more about brands and VR and how to work brands into VR and events and things like that. So I think the first question, we talked a little bit about VR projects, but maybe what's some great examples of working with VR and brands, and kind of how did that go? What was the experiences you guys had, and kind of what were the brands into essentially? Who wants to start? Go ahead.
I can kick it off down on this end. So
Okay.
we're just shipping this week a project for Lockheed Martin, and Lockheed Martin, as you imagine, they do these really major scale projects like launching satellites into space, and it's really hard for their customers to feel like they're there and part of it. So they filmed some content that they've posted on YouTube 360, and it's just as you imagine. You're right there when a rocket's launching. So they're using these around the world in various field activations, so trade shows, et cetera, so that when they're talking about these huge projects, they can both, within the booth, showcase what those projects look like, as well as give one of these viewers away for consumers to take home.
Anybody else? Want to jump
Sure.
in? Yeah, go for it.
We were just working with Dubai Parks and Resorts in Dubai.
Yeah,
you
the
can't,
mic.
sorry.
Yeah, sorry, the mic. Yeah.
How's
You
now?
too calm and collected.
Hello. All right. So we were just working in Dubai with a company called Dubai Parks and Resorts. We were in charge of designing the How to Train Your Dragons land and the Shrek land. So we were working with DreamWorks as well as the developer out in Dubai to tell those different stories. Part of that was actually the two e-ticket attractions, which was the Shrek Dark Ride as well as the How to Train Your Dragons Dark Ride. If you guys aren't familiar with the term dark ride, it's if you go to Disneyland and you ride the Peter Pan ride, that's a dark ride. So anything that's inside, it's enclosed, it's fully immersive, just no headset. It's like the old school version of VR. So what we did is actually we created those worlds digitally and used our headset to actually do a lot of the timing and programming aspects of it. So, when I'm on the back of Hiccup, for instance, flying through Burke, I can put the headset on and feel like I'm actually on the coaster riding through the land. So we were doing, that way we can check our sight lines, we can check our timing studies for the way the cab is moving with conjunction of lighting and sound and audio and the whole thing. So, you can get a big portion of it programmed before it actually goes to installation on site. So a hell of a cool tool to work with and play with. Yeah.
Are they then in a capsule that moves or something?
Not at all, actually. It's pretty simple. It's in front of the computer. So we build everything in Maya before it gets CAD'd and engineered and all that good stuff. So we get the timing study from Mock, who was the engineer on the ride itself, the actual cab. But simply put, you're sitting in front of a computer and you're just with the headset, and they hit a go button, and you're just riding along with it. So as the design team, we can sit there and we can look at the sight lines. We really need to move that rock face a little forward. Oh, and when Hiccup appears over here, the cab is too far forward, my sight line's skewed, so we need to adjust that timing. The pin spot that we have illuminating Hiccup, it's coming on too late, we got to adjust that timing, those kind of things.
Cool.
It helps so much, you just don't have to program it all in the field. You can do a lot of that ahead of time. So.
Cool. Joseph, you do a lot of 360 experiences, right? What are some of those you've worked with brands on, and kind of how has that played out?
Well, it's been interesting. Sometimes it's a little bit slow, and for any brand, it's constantly all about ROI,
Yeah.
right? As it should be. So anything that they look at, they just go, well, how many people can we figure out are going to be able to come either through our space or that we can push it out to? I love the Happy Meal digital.
We got our moderator. Come on.
Moderators here. Great.
Yeah, there she is.
Exciting. So who
Fashionably.
joined the moderating?
I've been leading it from off the questions so far here. So welcome. Well,
We're not even past the first one yet.
we're not
so
past
we
the first
got
questions. We'll have to pick it up here a little bit.
Fantastic.
But
Yes, so
So we're
lots
just kind
of
of going through VR projects, some
Cool.
VR projects we worked on, brand interactions.
right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. We were over in Almonds and waiting and wondering where everyone was. Cool. Where are we now?
Joseph was in the middle of. telling us some
Cool.
stories.
Yeah, I was just saying, so that's the issue is just from a brand perspective. When you speak to a client, right, they want to know the ROI, and a lot of the trick is kind of talking them through it. So we're in the middle of doing something right now with an airline, and the airline's like, it's difficult because they don't necessarily even know what they want, which creates a whole new cluster, so to speak. When you're dealing with a client, it's hard enough to manage expectations and timelines, and that's an art unto itself. But helping them figure out what they want when they don't even know, and they don't know exactly what their audience is or their own client base is going to be, that becomes the trick. And so it all comes down, in my opinion, to figuring out how VR can help solve a need.
That's right.
Because cool isn't enough, right? It actually has to solve a need. So to your point, what you were saying a second ago, that you're able to use your tech to go through and create a more efficient way of approaching the problem. That's what it's all about. Yeah. So, we've produced things with Walmart and Coke, and sometimes those projects can go hot and heavy, and sometimes they just go. It's a nice to have, not a need to have. Need to have is what we're looking for.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think what we've seen, so I'm on the game side, so I'm a little bit different than some of this, but kind of moving from a traditional game world into the VR game world, especially big brands. One, for some reason, they're very protective of their IPs that they've spent billions of dollars on. And when you suddenly get them into a new world, there's just a lot of things that they don't realize. And frankly, some things we don't even realize, hey, this is really important to our world. This is really important, and you can't necessarily see it when you're looking on a 16:9 screen. But when you can suddenly look up or look down or look to the left or right in these games, you have to treat that very, you have to think through additional aspects of kind of how do we show that world, right? And I think you're right. The other problem I think we've seen too is that a lot of brands, everybody's very excited about VR, but there's a lot of complications, right? And there's a lot of limitations on it, on what you can and can't do. There's a lot of non-limitations of things you could do that you hadn't thought of before, and just really making sure you go into each project to express that brand, but still have that VR-ness, right? That makes it cool, right? And I think you have to look at that almost in every project right now, to make sure you're achieving that for the brand, right? So.
Did we go through everyone?
What's that?
Did we go through everyone?
I think we've gone through
that was-
everybody. Actually,
so
not in the
that was
end.
the first question. So Angela.
Oh, you.
Let's give you a chance to
Hi.
introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Angela Haddad. I'm the VR creative director of a VR art studio called 1/3 Blue. We make watercolor art by hand on paper and then scan it and animate it into 360 VR environments. We specifically do marketing campaigns for the fashion and lifestyle space, sometimes in music as well.
Cool.
Cool. And my name is Malia Probst. I am your belated moderator today. Thanks for holding the fort down here, guys. Very kind of you. I'm with VR Scout, which is one of the world's leading immersive media companies. We have one of the biggest reaches out of any company in the space. We reach 12 million people a month. In 2016, we reached almost 200 million people, and our capabilities run from anywhere from 360 video to full interactive content, but we also lean in pretty heavily on mixed reality. So you might have seen some of our fun content on our .com or all over our distributed channels. And then for this, I think when we're talking about brands and live events, right, we're talking about 360, I think probably our most prestigious project that we did that kind of falls under that umbrella, we did a live stream of President Obama's farewell address back in January, so we worked directly with the White House on that. And something interesting, kind of specific about that campaign is that, first of all, we did it cross-platform. So that was live streamed in 360 to headsets, that was live streamed in 360 on YouTube, live streamed on Periscope/Twitter, whatever that thing is calling itself these days, our own .com, and then I think I got them all. But anyway, that was also, we worked directly with Facebook to do that live 360 stream on Facebook, because that was one of the first times only Discovery had been able to do that before. So that was one that we're particularly proud of and kind of a nice feather in our hat. But check us out all over the social media and vrscout.com to keep abreast of all the news, because we make a lot of content and fun original reporting about this space. So the next question that we're going to go over is really about distribution. So a lot of questions that I get when clients come to me is, how do I get the most eyeballs inside a headset? How do I get the most eyeballs either on a two-dimensional screen? How do I get the most people to see this? So I really want to dig in deep into where you guys are distributing your content. And obviously, it's going to be a little bit different for every client and specific to those clients' goals. But how are you distributing your immersive content, and then why are you distributing it on those platforms? Like, what sticks out to you?
Yeah. Well, I think each project's been a little different. Partly, we have a new game coming out at the end of the year, and that one's going to be only on the Daydream, mostly because you're getting funded right now. And I think that's really interesting. It's kind of a challenge and a problem right now in the industry space is that the first parties are funding a lot of content, which I think is fantastic because I think without that, a lot of us wouldn't have an opportunity to really play in the space. It just wouldn't be a profitable space for us if they weren't kind of funding some of that.
How long is that exclusive for you guys?
I can't really say. It's a while.
All right.
We'll say it's a while. But it's yeah. So I think that's one challenge. But I think the other challenge we're looking at too is that it's not just. I mean, there's ways to get it across everything now, right? That's not that hard. You use Unity, use Unreal, even natively, you can get it across most platforms. It's really not necessarily getting it on device. It's getting the experience right. I think right. It's really getting the. Hey, we'd love to do this, and we want to have it on Gear VR, and we want to have it on PlayStation 4, but they have two different control sets. They have two different input mechanisms. They have two different, so you kind of have to think through that a lot more, and I think becomes one of the bigger challenges of distribution is making sure you can have a common denominator that plays across everything while still not taking away from the PlayStation VR or PlayStation VR that has two controllers versus the Gear that has a headset versus that Daydream which has one controller. Right?
Let me build in a second part to this question. What metrics are you looking at for success? So when you come to the client, when the client says, this is what my goals are, this is what I want, this is what we're going to look at to achieve those goals. So where are you distributing, and then what are the metrics that you're looking for that?
Yeah, I'm probably not the best one on this one right now because I think metrics are light for us right now. Honestly, it's really about getting interesting content out and really kind of pushing the envelope for us in gaming in terms of getting high-end experiences on low-end devices. That's kind of our focus right now. So I'd say right now it's the traditional gaming metrics in terms of retention and install base, really. So these guys might have better answers on this one though.
I'll steal the opportunity to answer the question about distribution and also get my plug in that I missed. So our workaround is the fact that we do the agency model, so working with brands and enterprise. We know that the consumer side will get there. It will reach mass. So in the meantime, we have the opportunity to help, the biggest companies in the world get there first and get the functionality working. So our example on the enterprise side is working with Salesforce, which was we all know Salesforce as the CRM tool, but they do an initiative called Connected Cities where they actually run the big data for municipalities across the country. So for them, their KPI was, is VR a viable tool to manage big data, to visualize it, to control it from, by actually being within the data. So what we did was built basically a one-to-one San Francisco based on actual 311 data. So you could, you enter that world, you're kind of, in a giant over top of a SimCity-esque environment, but it's actually pulling in real data, emergency services, street lights, traffic. And city managers can get in there and zoom into individual cases or see a more holistic view, distribute emergency services from there. And this was really a demo to prove the concept out. And so the success metric for them was then taking this demo to their Dreamforce conference, which is a massive event they do every year, and showing it to other municipalities and getting that evangelism going. So by proving out that concept, other municipalities are now interested in getting those demos built for them and actually turning this into a real tool. Obviously, it's not going to be implemented quite yet as the management tool, but it's the first step towards showing that this is what big data management is going to be looking like in the future. So in terms of distribution, by going direct to brands right now, we're just helping kind of make VR the de facto tool for all sorts of stuff, which will then, once it launches in a more mass way for the consumers, everyone will be way more comfortable with the various applications of it beyond just gaming and entertainment.
What platform was that on?
This was it was a partnership with HTC and Salesforce.
Cool.
Joseph, where are you seeing distribution and metrics?
Sure. Well, one of the things that I wanted to follow on is that, even if I think we're at the phase right now where we need to build out case studies. You're doing what you just mentioned. I think in 12 months or 24 months, when companies are really ready to deploy capital, because the eyeballs really will be there, the companies such as yours, hopefully all of ours, where we've been able to get out early, create case studies, and prove that we're that our company is the ones that have solved some of those problems.
Yeah, you have a lot of case studies in your back pocket.
like once that happens, then right, it could be great. So, and it's interesting. I don't know how you guys felt about this, but it all like over the last couple of years, it all felt very cool to be like the first, right? Like we made the first music video, we made the first thing with the United Nations, we made the first toy commercial. But then the problem is with all those things is that as soon as we did that, even though it felt really cool and there was some PR around it, you guys did some articles on us actually, then there wasn't as much follow-on with those original companies because they went, gosh, there wasn't quite enough traction. Even there were millions of views on YouTube. So, some of the comments came back and they were like, how come I can only look in one direction? And so even though it was the simplest thing in the world for any user to, click and drag around on YouTube, a year ago, there were enough people that just didn't know how to do that the companies weren't so satisfied with it. But now that we've created some of those case studies, I think that we're in a better place going forward to re-engage with clients and say, like, look, this can work at the small level, now let's just blow it out.
And I think that's where episodic content comes in. Actually, I think I found that it's been a really great way to engage people, keep them coming back through story and narrative. And to answer your distribution question, a lot of brands have been wanting to capitalize on their existing social media followings, and that's where Facebook and YouTube 360 have come in. And maybe that detracts from VR a little bit, but I also think that for the time being, it's a very acceptable method, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of engaging people on social media, introducing them to the world of VR. We're sort of still in that introductory phase, and I think that's it's very fine if that happens.
See, for us, it's hard, right? Because we in the theme park world.
Yeah.
We're constantly looking at throughput, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many thousands of people can you put through this experience in an hour, right? And it's, especially with the developers that we talk with, it's one of the buzzwords, right? So a couple of years ago it was projection mapping, right? So every meeting you walked into was, it's got to be projection mapping, got to be projection mapping. And then now every meeting that we walk into, it's VR, AR, right? And then we talk about, okay, so how do we talk through that conundrum of throughput, right? And then you're talking about, so we've got 40 people an hour, that kind of thing.
Only one head goes in a headset at a time.
Right. So how do you have that shared experience in an immersive space, but with multiple people? That's the
you were telling me
glitch.
that you guys had actually been in the planning stage, right? In the pre-production stage of planning a theme park, you actually utilized VR for that planning stage, right?
Yeah.
And then you shared with me, and this was kind of a back channel conversation that we had a couple weeks ago, and you shared with me kind of your learnings from that. And I thought you had some really valuable input. So it turned out that it was great. It really helped for you guys. However, because there are not some solutions in terms of your needed pipeline, it actually made it more expensive. Can you elaborate a little bit on that for people? Because I thought that was really, really valuable.
Totally. So the way that we work, so let's take a dark ride, for instance, that we were chatting about earlier. So for like the Shrek dark ride, you start with your concepting, right? You get some story beats down, you get your scripting down, and then your script then goes directly into storyboarding, and from storyboarding you go into what the physical sets, the physical environments are. When we get into that physical environments, a typical theatrical way to go about it was that you do a ground plan, right? You get your ground plan down, and then you start doing elevations and sections, and then they get more engineering drawings. And you work it through that way. What we found with the VR specifically is that if we built this entire space in Maya and could traverse the space in Maya, complete with lighting and textures and sound cues and the whole gambit, it was awesome. But then I've had this complete set in digital world that I can't extract and get it into a shop to actually build, because our product isn't the digital. Our product is the physical, right? It's a different thing. So all that time and that care and that blood, sweat, and tears that went into that digital model can't be used for the contractor that's in the field building the thing. And that's what was so hard for us, because we have to take that beautiful model, and then I have to have an entire other crew come in and take that model and then draft it and get it spec'd out and get it into a shop and talk it through with a contractor. So wouldn't it be fucking amazing if I could take that model, right, and get that to a contractor, and I don't have to redo it 15 times. Does that
So
make
it
sense?
seems like an opportunity for someone out there to invent that tool set
Totally.
to help you in your workflow. And so, Craig, kind of going back to the original question, like where do you like to see your content distributed, and then what sort of metrics are you looking at for success? And I know you're on a little bit of a different side of things.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, like my neighbor, we're in the physical world. So when
Right.
we talk about distribution, we're really not involved in whether they're hosting at YouTube's 360 or doing a standalone app. We're completely agnostic to that. What we talk to our clients about is the value of someone seeing the brand right here while they're having that experience. And we need to keep reminding ourselves that it's such early days that there's a great likelihood that this is someone's first VR experience. So if they're doing it in public, and we've witnessed this time and time again, the person next to them is always pawing at them. Let me see what you're seeing. I've never seen that. Why are you smiling? For that matter, why are you turning your head? To your point earlier on, like there's people don't even realize that you can turn and be immersed in this content. So for us, again, it's physical distribution, and we see that happening in a lot of different ways, whether it's in-field activations, or we did something with Conan O'Brien at Comic-Con the last couple of years where they sent out 30,000 of these viewers to influencers so that you could feel like you were sitting right next to Conan on stage at Comic-Con. And the whole idea was to create that sort of jealousy moment of like, you're in there with Conan, how do I get in there? So we like to think that for every one of these that gets financed and put out in someone's hands, 10 other people are actually physically seeing it over the course of its lifetime.
Okay. So, like you just said, we're in early days, right? And so the level of education and the level of knowledge out there is typically very low. So it's a huge challenge on our side of things to be able to quickly educate clients, and then being able to do that quickly enough and effectively enough to have them still on board, right? So when you're getting kind of random RFPs, there's a lot of misinformation out there as well, right? It's easy to get a lot of bad information. So when you do have RFPs, like, I'm really interested in what all of your processes are in terms of educating your clients on the technology, and then how you come up, because usually they're like, we want to do something in VR. I don't know what that means, but I want it. So how do you take this very random, very broad request, make it really tangible, and then how do you package together the right assortment of specific technologies to meet their goals? How do you kind of approach that learning curve?
So we're a little different. We're not an agency, so we don't take as many projects. So we're usually kind of in a long discussion with some of the IP holders. But I think it kind of comes back again is you really have to look at the brand first, right? And what are they trying to do? And then from there, I think then the next step is
Can you give
kind
me
of,
like a specific?
Yeah, so I mean, even use like a Marvel brand or a
Okay.
big sci-fi brand or a Star Wars brand or something like that. So in games, those are obviously great brands to be building
Sure.
games around. But every brand, they're known for certain things, and I think you have to do there's kind of a couple phases we always look at, right? Is one, great, you always have to adhere to what that brand wants and what are they protecting and what is most important to them. And then to me, secondarily, it's kind of then, okay, what's the cool VR-ness that you can add to that experience, right? Because it has to be natural, I think. And so we're always looking at that. And then frankly, the platforms kind of fall off of that, right? So you obviously want to try and hit like, okay, can I hit the big mobile VR platforms because they have the most installs? Is this an experience better for a smaller set of people on high-end VR? And I think what's happening now, frankly, is that we're trying to get these high-fidelity experiences on mobile VR and bridge the gap. And that tech is getting there. Google just announced Google Surratt last week at Google I/O, and we've been working with them on that project as well. So it is very cool to where I think we can get high-end solutions now on almost any VR platform soon. So that's an exciting piece, but you really then have to also look at what's the control inputs. Do I need 2 motion controllers? Can I do it with a single touch? Can I do it purely off of gaze-based navigation, right? So to me, those are the things that we will look at is how do we craft that right story for that brand? Because you can't just go in and say, great, we're going to do this. We're going to do only gaze-based because that's the most installs. And a brand like a Star Wars or a Marvel will be like, that doesn't adhere to our brand, right? So to me, it's really kind of a 3-phase approach. It's kind of the inputs, it's the distribution, and then the brand protection to make sure they all align to have that right experience, because otherwise I think it'll feel forced, if that makes sense.
It does make sense.
I mean, I think the biggest hurdle when you're talking to a client is that they're so used to seeing things 2D edit, and so you can get them to imagine what, you could pitch them a storyboard of something, and they'll get it. The problem with VR, and to your point, the devil's being in the details, that there's all these different controllers. How do you get a client to visualize how something's going to work without actually building it? Because obviously going to build it is expensive. Yeah. It's hard. You can't just do a quick little sizzle test, especially if it's going to be interactive and expect it to work. So, what's the answer?
What's the answer?
The answer is just, man. I don't think we have the tools yet to be able to mock up quick, easy, sizzle demos that clients can immediately go, oh, I get it. Because I can, me and my team and people who are in the world, they can we can visualize, but it's very hard for them. So
you mentioned those case studies earlier. That's exactly the type of thing that I think is where we're at in the industry right now, though. Right. It's like every case study you have, you can then kind of go back and be like, it's kind of like this. Right. You know what I mean? Right. But I think that's helping a lot right now. We've had a lot of small demos that we can kind of parlay that as case studies. Be like, kind of think about this, and then kind of tweak it around.
I've seen a lot of success actually storyboarding to give people an idea with using tools like Tilt Brush. Yeah. Because at least you can have an artist, you can commission an artist to use these virtual reality creation tools to make spherical content. So you can put the headset on someone, they're like, oh, okay, I get this. And even storyboarding through those creation tools, I've found that actually ramps down that education sort of hurdle that we have. Mm-hmm. Joseph, can you dig in a little bit more to specifically, like maybe a specific example of someone had a request and then you dialed into, this is exactly the technology that you need and this is how we're going to put it together for you?
Sure. The Air and Space Museum, Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, wanted to do something in AR.
Okay.
And that's literally all they came to us with. We had this call with their head of innovation or whatever, and he's like, we want to do something in AR, but it's got to be cheap, and it's got to be incredibly scalable, and
never before seen.
It's got to be amazing.
and
incredible in every way.
Yeah, and they were like, and you tell us how much it's going to cost, which, by the way, is my least favorite thing. Because nobody knows what these budgets are like. Yeah. So again,
there's no budget until you give them a budget. And they're like, no.
And then they go, no. We're just going to kill the whole thing. And I'm like,
quarter of that.
Yeah. So again, I think so much of it comes down to a really thoughtful process of managing expectations, and understanding what their actual mission critical objective is. Right. Like if you can get core to really understanding how they think. So we had this conversation, and they were like, look. We just want that when a school bus full of kids from Scottsdale, Arizona, this was literally what they said, comes into the Smithsonian, and they're going to walk in and they think that everything that they see is so lame and so boring that we want to be able to give them something that's not going to cost us very much. They don't have to pay for a whole big headset, that they can walk in and get some cool AR experience.
Okay.
And so with AR, obviously, there's a million things that could be done. But I was able to finally get them to go, okay, at least here are the parameters of budget. Because at first they go, well, you just tell us how much it's going to cost. Well, it could cost we could come up with something awful that would cost, 20 grand. And we'd come up with something amazing, cost like 20 million. But they always know what that number is. Mm-hmm. They do. And so if you can finally get them to say it, then you can start to ideate in a more realistic sort of way, reasonable and realistic way. So what we came up with is this idea that we would take the students would be guided to a certain specific spot within the museum where they would stand, and we would use the entire space shuttle as a marker. Mm-hmm. To see the cargo doors open, the retractable arm come out, and release the Hubble telescope into space with a whole bunch of cool data flying around at the same time, and obviously you've got the sound and it's telling you something with the voice of Mission Control or Houston or something like that. We haven't executed this yet, as you can tell, because I'm still speaking a little bit with
your hands.
Pitch mode.
Exactly. Thank you.
And then.
And that's something that we were, that was accomplishable within the parameters of the budget that they wanted, and I think it would be pretty damn neat. It'd be pretty damn neat. And if we could convert them into a client, then
So then are you
we'll have a pretty awesome case study.
So then
My
it sounds
favorite
like
word of the day.
So this would be like a mobile-based AR solution.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, because again, scale, right? They don't, and I told them, like, we could install the sickest thing you've ever seen.
Right.
We'll put in 4 Vive stations. It'll be awesome. There'll be lines around the corner, and they're like, we don't care. We don't care if there's lines around the corner. We want as many kids as possible to be able to use their own devices, roll in. So, what you were saying about trying to make mobile as cool as possible, I really still think that that's where we are in the world. And so every time I see one of those Samsung commercials where somebody's just got the awe on their face, I kind of say, God bless you, Samsung, because people, I think if it doesn't work on mobile, then the industry will die.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's entirely possible. It is the coolest thing in the world. No one has a frame of reference of the Vive when you're giving them this experience. So I think we have to continually step back from that and say, this smartphone VR is amazingly cool for most people today.
There's a phrase that we always use in the office, which is, leading the client down the garden path, right? As far as education-wise.
Right.
The best example that a lot of our work is in China, right? So we work with these large-scale developers that have no concept of creative, and they're nuts and bolts contractors. They've been building these huge high-rises for their entire life, that kind of world. And we came in and we had this beautiful presentation. We were going to do a lake show for them, and it was like a huge thing. And we go through this whole thing. It's like 30 minutes, and there's explosions and people coming on stage, and there's a whole stunt section and this whole thing, right? We get done, and we're like, you're panting. You're like, that was good, right? And the guy turns to us and he says, "There's a screen in the back of the stage. What? You can put stuff on that screen?" It was like a fucking LED screen, right? It was like, that's what you got out of that thing? The entire presentation, you got that we had an LED screen upstage?
It's funny that you mentioned that because I recently had a client ask me to make a bespoke 360 video for them to project on a 2D screen in a retail store. And I think that was probably the most frustrating moment of my career.
How did you educate them about that, and how did you talk them into the solution that
well, I
they
asked,
needed?
so that led me to the question, have you ever tried VR? And they said no. So that explained everything.
There we go.
So yeah, I sent over a headset, and we're still, it's always a process to convince people, because I think a lot of times they're just very attracted to the novelty, but then they're not into it enough to put in the budget for, like a real headset campaign. So specifically with the retail store, but you got to buy a bunch of mobile headsets, and sometimes that's a turnoff. But you have to explain to them, well, if you put it on a 2D screen, you're kind of like, what's the purpose of doing this at all?
One of the things, we're used to working as an agency in general. There's been, emerging tech has never stopped. We started in '99, so the internet was like a wild west. So we had the opportunity to tell people what a Flash plugin was, and then starting from there, things continued through mobile, and now, so we always dedicate, by working with large brands, we rather than jump on RFPs, we tend to prefer going after brands from kind of a carte blanche, and explaining to them our philosophy on play-based, entertainment-based brand experiences, and sort of guiding through their goals. We love it when AR and VR emerges as part of a solution to another goal. So an example is with the retail store Justice, like the tween-focused clothing brand. We built an app called Live Justice, which launched recently. Their issue was, how do we get 10-year-old girls to want to go to the physical store?
Right.
So they knew mobile was going to be an important part of it, and so we set about creating a mobile loyalty experience. And it's like, what can we actually do to get that Snapchat culture, interacting with the store? So one of the natural AR applications ended up being actually embedding through kind of recognizable glyph patterns on the clothing a way for users to embed almost like sticker, secret message type visual to activate their play and creative patterns and actually embed those onto the clothes in the store. And then through their account, they can go into the store, see things that other people have created.
So smart.
While they're, there's also the normal like points and loyalty rewards type stuff associated with visiting the store. So the AR ended up being like by the way, we can do something that's never been done before on top of.
That's the way to do it, right? Because you start with your nugget, what your story is, right? And then it doesn't become a gimmick, right? It makes sense. It feels right in the moment because it's responding to the story instead of trying to force a gimmick onto the story, right? That's cool, man.
We're happy to force gimmicks if people want to pay for it too. Like, don't get me wrong.
All right, so we're running up on our time here, and we do have a hard stop. So I'm going to go down the line. You're going to state where everyone can find you, remind everyone what your company is, and then leave everyone with one prediction of things that they should keep their eyes out for over the next 1 to 2 years.
Where you can get a hold of me? I'm around. I'm just around.
I'm around.
I'm around LA. So again, seismic.com or seismicgames.com. I'm on Twitter. I think my Twitter handle is John Was Taken, because John was taken. So just add John Was Taken. So prediction. So I think the thing I'm most excited about, and we've been very fortunate to have a couple of these handsets as prototypes for several months now, but Google just announced 2 new standalone headsets that are untethered with inside-out tracking and all that stuff. It's amazing. It's the biggest step up I've seen in VR since VR, the first time I put it on. So I think as those headsets come out and as more data comes out around those, I know Oculus is working on one as well, that's going to be a major, major change because you no longer are tied to a PC. You can walk around, you have inside-out tracking, the price points are strong, you're not necessarily putting your phone into it because you might want to have your phone for other reasons. So I think that's going to be the biggest change that's going to happen to VR very quickly, and those are coming out fairly soon. So we're not a long-distance future on that. So that'll change a lot.
My company's called Epicenter VR. If you know a gigantic client that wants to spend a gigantic amount of money, then don't call anybody else. Just call us. And then we'll figure out how they don't understand, what VR is yet. What's Apple going to do? I mean, good Lord, no. We all have ideas. I think in terms of predictions, whatever they do. As long as the ghost of Steve Jobs is still around and giving some insight, I think that's going to be that could potentially be transformative. What's the biggest prediction? I don't know. I think whatever Apple does. Whatever Apple does is going to be big. But absolutely what you said. I'm in the middle of developing something right now that's for iOS, and we're going to slide it into a headset. And Google could come along and just lay waste to what the thing that I'm building, because their headset potentially could be so amazing and so awesome, and so many people could buy it, and especially if there's a way to make it very brand specific, so that an airplane or a Smithsonian or something like that can figure out how. It really feels like their particular headset might be big. But I still vote Apple.
There we go, Apple.
I think a prediction would be shared spaces becoming a huge thing. And by the way, as I was speeding over here, trying to get here on time, I was listening to the latest VR Scout podcast, which specifically talked about some of the cool announcements.
Oh God! So now you know what my predictions are.
I'm from Googlio, as you called it on the show. So definitely listen to that. But I think just the same way that Skype and FaceTime are now, it's a no-brainer to do that. When at the first time you were a little bit reticent to get on with your pajamas on, but now it's like topless and I'm in a business meeting and nobody cares. That shared space through VR and mobile is going to be a great gateway to this. To get that going YouTube announced the co-viewing experiences for people in disparate places to watch together. Those kinds of things will become very comfortable to people, and then it's what will that bring about? What will that create in terms of social interactions in things we can't necessarily expect? So I think that's going to be neat to watch. And by the way, our company is called Fuel. We're at fuelyouth.com, same thing on Twitter. We're basically a tech entertainment company that ended up focusing on doing it largely for brands that want to play in the space. While the cool thing about brands is, we don't necessarily think we're going to have the best idea. Probably we will, but we love hearing from clients that really want to play and brainstorm, and we know that we've built a team that can create it to the best of our ability. So that's where we kind of specialize, is like, let's brainstorm together and see what we can actually create that's marketable. So yeah, send people our way if you know of anyone. But
Alex?
it's great to be here. Oh, my name is Nick Yaniti. I know I'm Captain Nemo over here, but you can actually engage at fuelyouth.com if you want to send stuff to us. My last name's too long to spell, so it's Nick Yaniti, but shoot stuff to engage at Fuel Youth, and we'll get it.
Awesome. Alex, where can we find you?
Entdesign.com would be it's ENT design, as in entertainment design. It's clever, I know. Entdesign.com.
One prediction.
One prediction.
Look in your crystal ball.
Crystal ball. In the theme park world, how awesome when Nintendo opens up at Universal Japan. They have a whole land coming, right? That's Nintendo IP. How cool would it be if you could go there and with AR and VR actually play games, right? So you're in the world of Mario physically, and I am actually playing Mario digitally on a physical space, right? So causing people to actually go to a physical place to play a digital game with AR. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So total immersion. I mean, in a physical way as well as in a digital way. Mm-hmm. I think would just be brilliant. And then how do you tie that back to, if you're playing like a World of Warcraft game, right? If you're in a physical space, that's all World of Warcraft, and then it ties back to your avatar that you have at home as well.
There you go. Craig, where do we find you, and give us one prediction?
So for our consumer products, it's dotocase.com, and for our custom VR products, it's dotocasevr.com. My email is just craig@dotocase.com. My prediction is that despite the continued evolution of the higher-end platforms for virtual reality, that over the next 18 months, more people are going to experience VR via one of these things than all the other platforms combined, and it's important to remember that if you want to find the audience today.
I'm Angela Haddad. You can find me at 1thirdblue.com. 1/3 is spelled out. On Twitter, I'm at Angela Haddad. And predictions, also my 360 videos are on YouTube and Facebook. Predictions, I think that location-based VR is going to be huge for the industry. I think that it's going to drive people to buy, mobile VR headsets. It's going to drive costs down. There's more headsets that are going to be announced. So, Facebook, actually HTC just announced one this morning. I think it's called The Link. It has 66 degrees of freedom, and it's a mobile headset. So exciting things ahead, and I think that honestly we're pretty close to that. Yeah.
And my name is Malia Probst. I'm with VR Scout. You can find me, Malia, at vrscout.com. And my prediction, I have so many predictions, but what I think is most applicable to brands, marketing, advertising in this discussion is look at social shared spaces, just like someone just mentioned up here. But also we're talking about cross-platform social experiences. So when you look at what Facebook is doing with Facebook Spaces, how you can be in virtual reality but then make a call to your mom on her messenger on her phone, that's pretty incredible. And when you look at what YouTube is releasing later this year as well, when we're talking about bringing in customizable avatars into YouTube, which has the biggest content library in the world, such a huge community, I think that in the next year or so, those are where you want to be looking, because you're going to find solutions for those shared experiences and cross-platform content distribution that you don't have to make from the ground up. YouTube and Facebook and the big guys are already doing it for you. Thank you, guys.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.